So hello everyone. Today, welcome to our podcast. Today, our topic will be the role of ethics in leadership and how leaders shape ethical culture. Okay, so before we start, let's just imagine this. Imagine you're at work and literally everything you do is being tracked. And I don't just mean generally, I mean very closely. Every second of your day is being monitored. So, even small things like how long you pause, how long you take a break, are being measured. And when you think about that, it can change how you experience your work, right? It actually stops being natural and starts feeling more controlled and pressured. And that's where this whole discussion begins. Because it's not just about productivity anymore.
Agreed. With something as simple as that, not only is it small, but we could also say that little small problem could expand on how your performance score is affected. But what I think is more stressful is that it's not just because of how you're doing your job anymore. I think it's more about how you're constantly aware that everything is being measured. It's like a type of pressure that can really change how someone feels at work.
And if we're being honest, that raises a big question. Does that make a company efficient or just kind of unethical? Because there's a fine line between improving performance and putting employees under constant pressure. At first, systems like this might seem effective since kind of push employees to stay productive throughout the whole process of their work. Yet over time, that level of control can start to feel very overwhelming, and it may affect how employees feel about their own work.
Exactly. So today we're talking about ethical leadership and how leaders basically shape the environment employees work in. It's not just about setting rules or expectations, but about the kind of culture they create through their decisions, priorities, and behavior. And that culture directly affects how employees feel and act every single day.
Completely agree with my colleague. And we're using Amazon as our main example because it's one of the most successful companies in the world. And when we say successful, we're not just talking about revenue, we're talking about influence on global level. They've changed how people shop, how fast we expect deliveries, and even how companies compete with each other. So far from the outside, everything looks extremely efficient. Everything is optimized, everything is fast, but at the same time, it's also one of the most criticized is when it comes to working conditions. And that contrast is what makes this case so important because now we're not just analyzing the success, we're analyzing the cost behind that success. And that's where leadership becomes a key factor.
So we can all kind of assume that it's the perfect case of performance versus people. And that contrast is what makes this discussion really important because we're not just talking about one company. We're talking about a bigger pattern in modern organizations where success is often measured by speed and efficiency, but not always how employees are treated. So that creates a tension between achieving results and maintaining ethical standards.
Exactly. And later on, we'll also bring in a CEO perspective to see how ethical leadership should actually work in real life. Because it's one thing to talk about ethics in theory, but it's completely different when leaders have to apply these ideas in real business situations. Isn't that right, Daria?
I agree with you, Ganna, because this isn't just theory, it affects real employees. And that's what I think makes this decision so important today, because leadership decisions actually impact people's daily expectations at work, not just company performance. So, to dig in this further, we know that Amazon is known for their speed and efficiency, like how everything is so optimized, where each process is designed to make the things move faster or be more productive. But at the same time, doesn't it make you wonder what employees experience behind the system? Because efficiency doesn't always show the complete full picture here.
Yet, behind that, there have been many reports about what it's actually like working there. And what's important is that these reports focus not only on performance, yet they also focus on employee experiences, which makes it very personalized towards the employees. And many workers describe environments where expectations are extremely high and pressure is constant. While this might help achieve efficiency, it can also create stress and impact well being.
Like constant monitoring, employees being tracked almost every second. It's not just occasional supervision, it's continuous, which can make people feel like they're always under pressure. Over time, That kind of system can become stressful and uncomfortable for a lot of employees.
Yes, exactly.
Plus, I'd like to add to what my colleague said. They also do really intense performance targets, not just high expectations, but constant pressure to maintain them consistently every single day with very little flexibility and very little room for slowing down. And over time, that kind of pressure, just doesn't just affect productivity, it affects mindset. Employees start thinking differently, they start prioritizing speed over well being, results over recovery, performance over basic needs, and that's where it becomes concerning. Because once people feel like they can't even take a normal break, that's when the system starts to feel unhealthy. So the real issue isn't just efficiency, it's the cost of the efficiency.
Yeah, guys, I actually even read that some workers completely skip breaks just to keep up, which is honestly worrying because that's not a direct rule. No one is officially telling them to skip breaks, but the pressure is what makes them feel like they should. And that says a lot about the environment. It shows how strong performance expectations are and how they influence behavior, even without direct enforcement, which brings us back to leadership.
Yes, I agree with you 101%, Omar. That is a really big situation. So, with that, the big question here is, where do we actually draw the line? Because companies like Amazon are clearly successful and efficient. But at the same time, these reports about working conditions raise serious concerns. For these people, it actually is a major health risk to them later on. So we have to ask, are these conditions just part of a high performance environment, or are they crossing into something that we should consider unethical? And I think that's where leadership becomes really important.
To add on more to that, like if we're talking about this as being part of a high performance company or if it's just being unethical, at first it does seem like a normal company, such as Amazon in this case. But when you think about the pressures that the employees are under, don't you feel like it's starting to be more than just performance here? It's actually like an ethical concern.
Yes.
And also, like, if you really think deeply about it, it didn't just happen like randomly or out of nowhere. Leadership designed these systems. The monitoring systems, performance targets, and expectations were all created intentionally to improve results. But that also means leaders are definitely responsible for the impact these systems have on employees. So even if the goal was efficiency, the outcome definitely still does matter.
Exactly. I completely agree. Leaders shape the environment. These systems and expectations don't just happen randomly, they're created by leadership. So when we look at situations like this, we have to focus on the role leaders play in setting those conditions.
This connects to chapter one, how leadership influences organizational behavior, because leadership doesn't just give direction, it shapes how people behave within the organization. Employees don't just follow rules, they follow patterns, they observe what leaders reward, what leaders ignore, and what leaders tolerate. And based on that, they adjust their behavior. So if leadership prioritizes speed over everything else, employees will naturally feel pressure to match that, even if it comes at the expense of their well-being. And over time, that becomes a culture.
You're absolutely right, Munzer. Leaders don't just set goals, they influence how those goals are achieved. And I think that's the key point because goals alone don't define a company. The way those goals are reached matters just as much. So if leaders focus only on outcomes, employees may ignore ethical boundaries or push themselves way too far. And over time, that becomes like normal behavior. That's how a culture starts.
Exactly. Yes, I agree with you, Omar. And so, if leaders are prioritizing speed and efficiency over their employees' well being, then employees are naturally going to feel that pressure in their daily work. And over time, that pressure becomes a part of their culture. So, it's not just about one decision, it's a pattern created by the leadership itself. And that's how ethical culture or even unethical cultures develop.
Exactly, Ganna. Unfortunately, that's how culture is created. It's not about what the companies say. It's really just the consistency of prioritizing the decisions that are being made. And eventually, employees have no choice but to naturally adapt to that environment.
Exactly, 101%. And with that, now we want to bring in a real world prediction or perception to this discussion. So, thank you for joining us today, and we really appreciate your time. I think hearing directly from someone in a leadership role will help us understand this much better. So to start off, can you please, Mr. Muhammad, can you please briefly introduce yourself and what do you do as a role of a CEO?
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you, sir?
Thank you so much. Actually, the CEO or any, or let's say the GM or CEO usually, I believe he is everything in the company. He can be in any role of the company, from the smallest maybe, or from the very minor task until the end. So he can be in any role to cover any gap in the company. This is number one. And he has to be a skill to have a skills for all this. And this know how he can control all the departments. So the CEO, I believe he have to play all roles, or he can at least play all roles to manage in a proper way. This is number one. Number two, the CEO, I believe he has to be a good leader and to be like the good example for the teams. Let's say to give tasks for his team according to their capacity and knowledge and experience, and you know how to play in this his role in this way to get a good result from all departments, especially the harmony between the teams and the departments. He has to coordinate everything to get his result.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad, for joining us today. I want to add on by asking, what does ethical leadership actually mean to you?
Yes, sure. This is, I believe that we have to start our business through this ethic. So ethic is the most important, and what it's control our performance in business.
I think we can go to the next question.
All right. So my question for you today is, building on what you have said earlier, how do leaders influence the ethical behavior of employees within an organization? Do employees really take cues from leadership that much?
First, the leader have to be the starter of everything in the company. Let's say first he has to respect all the rules and abide by the rules 100%. Second, he has to respect the ability of every employee or every member in this company, and not ask for beyond their capacity to get his needs, and then don't try to get more than let's say the how I can say this. He doesn't to look more than the task from any employee for his so job description here, it's playing a very good role. We have to ask for our employee job description, not beyond that.
Yes, so my question for you is, in your opinion, what are the key elements of building a strong ethical culture inside the company?
First, as I told you before, to respect the job description, to give the employee their rights in a proper time. This is number two. Your team has to feel comfort and secure, and even though they have to feel they are responsible and part of the company. And then when we and there is many kind of there is many ways to make demonstration with your team, how to give them, how to get from them something not exceeded their job description, and try to, you have to be like very smart to deal with their limits and with their capacity. So in this way you will get whatever you want, with and all the parties will be happy, because you don't go beyond their abilities. So there is no blaming in environment at all.
Yes, exactly.
So I wanted to add on, do you believe that employees follow the company policies more or the leadership behavior?
First, as a CEO, I work on this too much to let all the members to abide by the rules of the company for sure. But what I believe that if I am a good leader and I have a good membership with my team, more efficient and more fruitful, because we are a human and there is emotion. If we are a good team, and it will help more than the rules but I believe in rules, and we have to believe in rules, but in the other way, to motivate this team and to make them more efficient and more responsible. You have to be a leader on the front and to give them motivation. And there is many way, and in the company there is many way to do that. Sometimes a gift, sometimes price, sometimes compliment in any way. So you have to use this.
Absolutely. What is your opinion on the working conditions that have been reported in Amazon warehouses? The way they treat the labor, the working conditions there.
I'm not, in fact, I can't judge like this huge company, but as I see, if the news is correct, I don't like the way to pressurize any of your employee to get just looking for the benefit of the company, because at long time you will face a problem, and day by day your employee will wake up and see that you are pressurized them and you get more than your rights, so they will behave in the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think prioritizing efficiency over employee well-being is ethical? Why or why not?
I believe there is. I don't like to compare this, because we are, as a CEO, we are looking for this the professional. And we're looking for the skilled people and for these people who is give more and more. We are a company and we're looking for the profit and loss and everything in this company. But also we have to use the ethic and the moral in our communication, in everywhere in the company, for sure. I don't prefer or not prefer, but the proficiency, it's usually by professional people you build your company. You have to be honest in this. So
Exactly. So, with that, where do you think leaders should draw the line between productivity and employee welfare?
first, every company has their analysis and their targets to get the profit, and they set a time and a budget for every project or whatever, and they have to abide by this and to get a profit. For the purpose of any company to get a profit, to be honest, but
Exactly.
not by pressurized people or touch anyone. So you have to use a balance and to use a people or a proper team to produce in the time and the budget you have to do. But I know the people in has a level of IQ, a level of let's say powerness and something like that. So in that way, I have to give every person or every employee according to his ability and efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed.
Do not expect more than this, because I know at the end maybe I will lose him or maybe he will fail.
Yes.
I'm here just to push people to success all together. Not I'm pushing people just to take from them in a toxic way.
Yes.
Okay. I have another one. How should leaders balance the needs of employees, customers, and shareholders, especially when those interests conflict?
First, any company has their plan. Sorry, this plan usually, and if it's let's see, a very simple company, no need to complicate the matter. Usually, we are set a very good teams and equipment, machinery, whatever. It depend to the career or to the career Here in this point exactly, we have to maintain all of our production to close at least or to cover all our expenses and to get our profit. We have to maintain this in this way, and in the same time we have to give our employee their rights, and we have to use uh, even in this part, let's say, to evaluate every person and give his right at the end, just to keep this company running in a proper way.
I'd like to add one more question. What responsibility do leaders have when it comes to protecting employee well-being?
This is very simple rule. When any of your employee come to your company and he has his CV or whatever, so there is a job description and a task. That's to maintain, to protect my team. I don't have to ask from the team more than their efficient or more than their knowledge or not beyond of anything, and abilities and their capacity in this way. This is number one. And number two, I have to protect their salary on time. I have to evaluate monthly every employee, what he did and what he deserved, and push them. And all the in all cases, I'm usually I'm trying to prize someone of them to motivate the remain teams, and in this way usually we motivate them. But to maintain their rights and to be in the comfortable environment in all cases, you have to use their job description exactly and to abide by that, not beyond. And sometimes we discover that someone he has more than let's say tasks or his job description. So we use this, and we in the other way we convert financial to him.
Yes, exactly. And honestly, all the answers you gave us were fantastic. It actually gave us idea of how the work, real life companies work, and how leadership positions like yourself interact with employees and ensure that their well-being comes first. So, with that, thank you so much, Mr. Muhammad, for your time today. Your insights helped us a lot, and we hope to talk to you very soon again.
Sure. Anytime, I'm happy for you, and I wish you a successful project.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Pleasure.
Muhammad.
Let's take a step back and look at it from a different perspective, because this issue doesn't just affect one group, it actually impacts multiple leaderships. And each group experiences the situation in a different way. So, understanding these perceptions helps us see the full ethical picture. And it shows us how complex these decisions are actually made.
Yes, employees face stress, burnout, and pressure, especially when expectations are very high and constant. Over time, this can affect not only their performance, but also their mental and physical well being.
So ultimately, leadership sets the pressure, then define targets and expectations. So even if employees feel it directly, it comes from decisions made at the top, which means leadership shapes the experience.
As you guys know, shareholders benefit from profit, but that's not the full picture because they also depend on long-term success, not just immediate financial gains. And long-term success requires stability, including employee satisfaction and company reputation. So ethical leadership actually supports shareholders too.
Yes.
At the same time, society questions fairness and labor rights. I think this is where the issue comes bigger and bigger, not just the company itself. Not only does it influence how people view the business practices overall, but whether companies are seen as responsible or not.
And governments may step in with regulations because when working conditions reach a certain level of pressure, it becomes more than just an internal issue. At that point, it becomes a concern for society as a whole. Governments have a responsibility to ensure that employees are treated fairly and that basic rights are protected. So leadership decisions can actually lead to legal consequences and external interventions.
I agree 100%. From a rights based view, employees deserve dignity. That includes being treated fairly, having reasonable working conditions, and not being pushed beyond healthy limits just to meet performance goals.
And again, from a utilitarian view, we ask if overall well being is improved. So even if customers benefit from fast service and companies achieve higher profits, we still need to consider employees.
It's possible, but it takes real change, not just policies, but actual changes in the behavior and priorities. Otherwise, nothing really improves.
Honestly, guys, this case really shows how leadership shapes culture, and culture isn't created instantly. It develops over time through repeated decisions and everyday actions. Even small choices matter, like how leaders respond to pressure, as we said, or how they treat employees, and that becomes the norm.
Yes, exactly, Omar. And I think one of the most important things here is how employees respond to what leaders prioritize. So if leaders focus mainly on results, then basically the employees will naturally focus on the results only. But if leaders prioritize ethics, well being, and balance, which is the most ideal way to go about it, then that becomes part of the workplace culture as well. So leadership really sets the tone for everything that happens inside an organization.
That's right. If we're talking about leadership here, then let's say that ethical leadership is about being balanced. It's
Mhm.
not just the profits here, because we agree that focusing only on the results will ignore the human side. But at the same time, don't you guys think that leadership is about managing both performance and well being?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, of course. And it connects to ethical decision making theories because leaders constantly make decisions that affect both performance and people. These
Mhm.
theories help guide leaders to make choices that are not only effective, but also fair and responsible. So, leadership is not just about achieving results, it's about considering the impact of those results.
Exactly what you said. And also listening to employees is pretty important because without actually hearing their concerns and experiences, leaders can't fully understand the impact of their decisions. Ethical leadership also means being aware of how choices affect the people.
Because culture is built through behavior, not just policies, but daily actions. Employees follow what they see, and over time, they become the standard.
And ethics is now a competitive advantage because customers are becoming more aware. They care about how companies operate, not just what they sell. So, ethical behavior builds trust, and trust supports long term success, which makes ethics strategic.
Yes, right. And with that, this decision actually goes beyond just Amazon as a company. It reflects how many modern businesses operate today. It raises bigger questions about what kind of work environments we consider to be acceptable. So, in that sense, this becomes a social issue, not just a business issue. And it affects how companies will operate in the future.
But it also reflects on the global business practices. There's a lot of companies are moving towards high performance models,
Mhm.
but not all of them consider the ethical impact. This is why this discussion is important beyond just Amazon.
Yes, exactly.
It's again about the ethical impact at the end.
Mhm.
It also influences laws and standards because when large companies adopt certain practices, they often follow a set of examples for others to follow as well. Over time, those practices shape what is considered acceptable and unacceptable in workplaces.
Nowadays, consumers are becoming more aware. People today care about how companies treat their employees, not just what they sell. So, ethical leadership also affects a company's reputation and public trust.
Companies risk losing trust if they ignore ethics, because once people question how employees are treated, it affects the company's image, and trust is hard to rebuild once that's lost.
Honestly, I think the biggest lesson that is that long-term success depends on ethical decisions. To be honest, because short-term performance can be misleading. A company might appear successful but still have internal issues, especially related to employee well-being. And if
Exactly.
those issues are ignored, this they eventually affect performance. So ethics and success are connected, not separate, and leaders need to think long-term.
That's something we actually see in the case study that we're focusing on today, which is Amazon. Amazon is a really well-known company, and people usually tend to think of Amazon as one of the giants in our company world. So, yes. So, before we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we discussed today. This case study really shows that leadership decisions don't just stay at the top level. They directly affect employees and shape their everyday experiences. And it highlights how much responsibility leaders actually carry, because their decisions influence not just their performance, but everyone in the company regarding employees and everyone under his responsibility.
Honestly, in a company, even with big companies like Amazon and maybe Shein in China, these are all things that should, everything we talked about should be considered, even if it's a big company with a
Yes,
good
agree.
reputation, that can directly be ruined if, depending on how they treat their employees.
It would also affect them in a negative way, since it will give them a bad reputation, and all the people that were loyal to their companies will eventually leave because it will not align with their ethics and with their beliefs. So this is really dangerous to any company to abide by ethics and think of ethics of more of a thing that they have to do more than it being a law.
Guys, honestly, for me, the biggest takeaway was like how the leadership shaped overall ethical culture. Like, I don't think that it's just the policies involved. It's how they prioritize certain things in the company and how they're behaving.
Mm.
Isn't it a bit like upsetting that employees just follow the actions more than words? And over time, culture itself redefines in the company.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And I honestly think like what stood out the most is that how risky it is when, as you said, performance is prioritized without ethics.
I think for me personally, it's about the human side. Employees aren't just part of a system, they experience stress and pressure every day. So leaders need to listen and protect their well being while also creating an environment where people feel respected and supported.
This case also
Agreed.
shows that ethical leadership builds trust. People notice how companies treat employees, and that trust is really important in the long term.
Exactly, this is what I meant. All right, guys, I think we should wrap this up.
So, overall, what we can take away from this is that ethical culture really starts at the top. Leadership, or leaders in general, should set the tone for what is considered acceptable and how people should behave. And those decisions have long term impacts, not just as companies, but on employees and society as well. So, to wrap this up, thank you everyone for listening. And we hope that this discussion made you think about the ethics in leadership and how it's very important for each company to have it, not as something that they should do, but as something more human and more related to their side. So, thank you everyone, and hope to see you next time.